Hello, everybody, and welcome back to This Day in History. It is May 28th, 2024. Not that that really matters. It's about the day and what has happened in all throughout history on this day. We have some pretty interesting stuff. We have quite a few birthdays again. And we have some important documents, essays really, being published in book form that are of great insight to understanding the founding of our nation. We have some other despicable acts. So yeah, let's just get into it. So it is on this day in 1660, English king, well, he was king of England, I should say, George the First. He is the first Hanoverian king. Basically, King George was born in 1660. However, he is king of England, but he was not born in England. He was born in Osnabrück, Germany. So he was a foreign-born king. If I remember right, I don't think he spoke English at all. English might not have really been established as a working language just yet. I don't know if you knew this or not, but English really is, the language itself is a bastardization, an amalgamation of German, and French, Latin. It's all kind of garbled together and spat out, and that's how we have the English language. That's why there are some words that are very, very similar in English as in other languages. I do believe predominantly German. For instance, Wasser, spelled W-A-S-S-E-R. In German, Wasser, that's the word for water. So, it's a little play on words there, but you can kind of see the etymology of our language, and I'm rabbit trailing, so I'm going to get back to it. 1888, American athlete Jim Thorpe was born. Now, what's interesting about Jim Thorpe is that he was the most well-rounded athlete in history, meaning he kind of did it all. But he was born on this day in 1888. On this day in 1908, a mere 20 years later, Ian Fleming was born. Now, you might know who Ian Fleming is if you've ever seen a Bond movie. Ian Fleming actually wrote the original stories of James Bond, which were then later converted into movies. He wasn't very old when he passed away. He died in 1964, if I remember right. Right when they were, Bond movies were really taking off. But he had a pretty interesting career. He was with military intelligence during World War II, and I believe that he used some of his real-world circumstances as a basis to create the James Bond character. And so, yeah, he was born on this day in 1908. In 1934, the Dion quintuplets were born, and they were born near Callander, Ontario, Canada. And I imagine the reason why they are of notable fame is because probably they were the first quintuplets ever born in history. Perhaps, I don't know. Perhaps it's the first time they ever documented photographically, because there was a picture of these quintuplets, and they, the 5 children were photographed together. Anyway, that was 1934 that they were born. It was the same year that my grandmother was born. In 1938, Jerry West was born. Jerry West was an American basketball player. He was a basketball coach, and he was also a basketball manager. And last birthday, she was a heartthrob of mine in the 80s, and that woman still looks good to me. 1968, Kylie Minogue was born. And if you don't know who Kylie Minogue is, she's an Australian singer. She's she's done some acting stuff too. Years ago, she had a bout with cancer. She beat it, and she's so beautiful and so radiant. Even to this day, she looks like $1 million. Well, I think so anyway. So now let's get into this day in history. On this day in 1788, the Federalist Papers which is a collection of 85 essays regarding the founding of our nation, the blueprint of our nation, the fabric of our nation, the intent behind the method to the madness, as it were, what it took to get to where we were with a hammered out U.S. Constitution, what the meaning behind it was. These essays would contain their personal thoughts on why they chose to put this, this here or that there. It gives great insight. In fact, oftentimes when SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, has to adjudicate something that is basically a constitutional question, one of the sources they go to would be the Federalist Papers, so they know exactly what the founding fathers absolutely meant, what the intention was behind the verbiage. A lot of people get, because interpretation is everything, right? So sometimes you actually need someone to spell out exactly what they were thinking. Anyone who wonders why, like, I run a G.I. Joe club, and on my other channel, it's dedicated to my Joe club. I did a whole series on our charter. I read the charter, and then I explained the charter, what it meant, what I was thinking, why this rule is in place, basically explaining the method to the madness, and that it's important because, people need to understand what the document is really saying, and not abusing that document by applying the principles inappropriately. So, like, for instance, in the Second Amendment says that it is necessary for, to protect the state, I'm paraphrasing here, that a militia shall be established. Well, so in the 20th century, the government started throwing out words like, militia, and since 1906 they had used the militia interchangeably with the National Guard. So you get people like my brother who thinks that, well, that militia that the Second Amendment's talking about, that's not talking about the citizens. That's talking about the government soldiers. And it's like, no, it's not. Militia was really clear back then. And they actually, in the Federalist Papers, they actually state who the militia was. The militia was the people. The anybody who was between 16 and 45 years old and was able-bodied and could carry a rifle, that was the militia. They were those that were empowered to protect the state at a moment's notice. The militia was the Minutemen, how the Revolutionary War got started when Paul Revere shouted, to arms, the British are coming. All those men that went out with their rifles and met the British on the road there and held them off, that was what they were talking about. The people, not the standing army. The standing army was something separate. The people made up the militia. So it's important. The Federalist Papers are important because it gives us a clear understanding of our foundation and what the Founding Fathers were clearly thinking, and it explains the method to their madness. In 1804, Napoleon would declare the establishment of the French Empire. And if you know history, you know what happened with that French Empire. It didn't last long because he got beat. In 1830, here's one of the despicable acts that I'm talking about. The Indian Removal Act is passed in Congress. And I love how, I'm being sarcastic here, I love how Britannica.com had carefully worded the explanation of the act, right? Because it says that basically what it was is it was a promise, it was a deal. It was Jackson saying, hey, we really like the land that you're on, and we're willing to give you this land here in the West if you let us have this land here. And it's an Obi-Wanism, right? Because that is true. That's what happened from a certain point of view. The reality is that it gave them the legal authority to just basically uproot Native Americans from their homeland, kick them out, and say, get out, this is our land. And realistically, why they did that is because they found resources on that land that they wanted. And that they wanted to get rid of the native tribes. So they kept sending them west. And as they went westward, over the years, as they expanded westward, this is 1830, so, upwards to 50, 60 years later, now there's full-blown warfare between the U.S. Army and the Native Americans. And basically at this point, 50, 60 years later, they're trying to pacify the natives because now they want to expand sea to sea, and they want to declare all the land as theirs. That was part of the Manifest Destiny. It was our God-given right to expand from sea to sea. The problem with that theology was that you had indigenous people that lived in between sea to sea, and it was best to try to live with them and not work against them, not try to kill them off, not to do whatever. Like, I even have a problem with Lewis and Clark because one of the mandates of that expedition was to basically tell Native Americans, oh, by the way, we own this land now, and you owe your allegiance and your fealty to our, the Great Father, referring to the President of the United States. And Jackson was a real bastard. He's one of the presidents that I don't like. He's, it's rumored that on his, when he was elected, he held this big party while he was the first president to allow the general public to come to the White House and party with him. He also was very vocal about saying that the common citizens were too stupid to elect their president, and that's why the Electoral College was more important in the election process. It was, they couldn't be trusted to elect their leaders, and that's why they needed a group of elites to do it for them. And his policies towards the Native Americans were deplorable. horrible. There's a few other presidents that were just as bad. President Tyler was one of Jackson's cronies, but he didn't last very long. Moving right along, we're going to skip to the next century here. In 1937, two things happened on this day in 1937. So May 28th, 1937, the car manufacturing company, Volkswagen, the German manufacturing company, they make cars. It was basically, it was the people's car. It was founded on this day in 1937, and basically it was founded by the Nazi Party. So all of you political activists that are so hell-bent on turning in your Teslas to go get a German-made, a Volkswagen. It's funny because there's a Volkswagen right in front of me. Like a Volkswagen electric car, for instance, right? You gotta really do your research, really. I mean, I find it kind of stupid and silly to like hold past sins over somebody. I believe in redemption. But I mean, if you're going to go under that mindset of, hey, I'm getting rid of my Tesla because I don't believe in the politics of the owner, Alyssa Milano, who then got a Volkswagen, then Alyssa, you need to recognize that Volkswagen was a Nazi company when it was founded. It was founded by the Nazis for the German people. And do you really want to support that? Just saying. Also in 1937, Neville Chamberlain, he becomes Prime Minister of England. I have issues with Neville Chamberlain. I have issues with his naivety when it comes to dealing with Germany. He wasn't heavy-handed enough, and had he been more heavy-handed with Hitler, maybe we might have been able to avoid World War II, but I doubt it. Germany was bent on expansion. They were going to expand, and Neville's folly was that he lobbied really hard for this personal guarantee from Hitler, this signed piece of paper that he would not be aggressive in Europe, that he would contain himself to his own lands, and that he would live prosperously with his neighbors. Hitler signs it. It was a worthless piece of paper because Hitler had no, and I've said this before in other videos, Hitler didn't take that document seriously. He had no desire to ever adhere to it, much in the same way as Saddam Hussein, who thumbed his nose at the global community every time he got drafted a UN resolution. He ignored it. And unless you were actually there to enforce this resolution, it's a worthless piece of paper. That pact, that document that he had Hitler sign, unless they were willing to actually take Hitler to task and keep him in check, which they weren't, it was a worthless document. And so he would resign in disgrace as a result of his failure of keeping Hitler from going to war. I think he took on an impossible task for himself. So I'm trying to give the man a little bit of credit, is that he had noble intentions. Obviously, I mean, no two ways about it. He had noble intentions, but they were, it was something that was just not, that just wasn't feasible. There was no way to, guarantee it. So we're going to fast forward to 1998, because we're kind of getting on time here. 1998, Pakistan becomes the seventh country to have nuclear capabilities. And after several underground tests, they had successfully produced a nuclear program. They became nuke viable. In 1999, Da Vinci's Last Supper painting, after close to 2 decades of restoration work, would be made publicly available for public viewing, which, I mean, that's a treasure in and of itself right there. So it's a painting depicting the Last Supper, which would be in the Bible. Christ has supper with his disciples, and it's right before he is taken into custody and eventually put on the cross to die for our sins. In 2014, there's an American poet, writer, Maya Angelou. She dies at the age of 86, and her autobiography consisted of, an examination, a reflection of economic, racial, and sexual oppressive themes. And so she would die on this day in 2014. And that is your day in history for May 28th. So thanks for joining me. I hope you are having a pleasant day. Hope that you are having a good day. It's kind of an overcast day today here where I'm at, so it is what it is. I'm on my way to work. I need to stop and get me something to eat first, so I try not to spend a whole lot of money, but sometimes you just can't help it. So that's it for today. Come back tomorrow, May 29th. We'll do it all over again. So have a blessed day. Take care. We'll see you soon.